Thank you all for coming today. I'm Rabbi Matthew Leibel, and we're here for Ettie Robinson, to honor her, to show her respect, and to say goodbye. Ettie passed away Wednesday morning, the 14th day of November 2018, which on the Hebrew calendar is the 6th day in the month of Kislev in the year 5779. She was 89 years old. Someone once told me, mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. That is so true. And I feel very strongly at this moment that it rings even more true as I see you all here today. Ettie Robinson was loved by so many people, family and friends. And that love is really why we are all here together. So again, we thank you on behalf of her family for coming. Our sages teach us that the highest form of respect we can show a person is to take care of her after death, to tell her story, and to accompany her to her final resting place. And so we begin our service this afternoon with the recitation of psalms and prayers that link Ettie's memory with thousands of years of Jewish tradition and with the eternity of God. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, bino deshe yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yenahaleni nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo. Kam ki elech v'geitz ha'mavet lo irara, ki ata imadi. Shiftecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai. Dishanta v'Hashem en roshi, kosi rivaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai leorech yamim. The Psalm of David. Adonai, God is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters and restores my soul. He guides me on the right path, for that is his nature. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai, the house of God, forever. In the book of Proverbs, we learn the concept of the Eshet Chayil, a woman of valor, the highest praise one can offer a woman. These words are often invoked Friday nights when Shabbat begins, as a husband offers them as a blessing to his wife. Eshet Chayil, a mother of generations, a woman of valor, what a precious find. Her worth is far beyond rubies. She's precious in the gifts she's given her family. Her children have found trust and truth in these gifts. They follow in patterns she taught. She opens her hand to the needy and extends her hand to the poor, robed in strength and splendor and dignity. She looks to the future cheerfully. She opens her mouth with wisdom. Her tongue is guided by kindness. We benefit and learn from her. She tends to the affairs of her household and never eats the bread of idleness. Her children come forward and bless her. Many women have done superbly, but you surpass them all. May she always be credited for the fruit of her labor and her achievements. Wherever people gather, her deeds speak her praise. May she live on in glory. Daughter, sister, mother, wife, grandmother, Baba, aunt, friend. Ettie Robinson was so many things just within her own family. The daughter of her parents, Malik, though many knew him as E.M. Peikoff, and Rose Rabinovich. She was their second child. Older sister Elsa, and younger sisters who followed, Penny, Risa, and their brother Marshall. Her in-laws, the late Mark Wall, Zichrono Livracha, the late Gerald Libling, Zichrono Livracha, Jerry Califf, Tanis Peikoff, mother of Terry and his wife Frida, mother of Bonnie, mother of Evan and his wife Cindy, and of David and his wife Liz, and Baba, grandmother, Kelly and Sean, Joshua, Daniel, Ari, and Zev. Also, justice and liberty. In the short time since Ettie has passed, people who knew her, family and friends, have reached out, sharing memories with her kids, and many of these memories have been relayed to me over the past day and a half. It's amazing how so many people keep saying many of the same things. She was a wonderful lady, a special lady, a class act, graceful and elegant, down to earth, humble, gentle. She was genuine, the true definition of what it means to be a nice person. Never mean, never gossipy. Ettie was independent. She never expected anyone to do anything for her. She could do it herself. Even if she physically couldn't, she still thought she could do it herself and would always try. She was stubborn. No, better, she was tenacious. The rock of her family. Ettie had an appreciation for beauty in this world. She always valued quality over quantity, but her aesthetic, what she liked, was a look of cleanness, simplicity, but beauty. And she always knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to work for it either. She was smart. This is a woman who started grade 1 a year early when she was just 5. When you grow up in Rossford, Manitoba, sometimes they need to fill the class. But that's not the only reason why Ettie was there. She was smart, especially with words. A great reader, a voracious reader. Always loved to read. A great speller. Couldn't really understand how you could be smart and not be able to spell. She was a master of crosswords. We're talking a woman who did crosswords in pen and who was so fast that she'd be filling in the next answer while you were reading the next clue. Anything with words. Cryptoquotes, puzzles, Scrabble. She loved to learn and learned throughout her life. She was always up on current events, new ideas, and as a result, was a woman who was amazingly progressive, very forward-thinking, always just a little bit ahead of the curve, and always accepting and tolerant. Ettie was born on June 25th, 1929. And as we mentioned, she grew up in the small town of Rossburn, Manitoba, with her sisters and brother. Their father, Malik, owned and ran the general store in town. And though the Peikoffs were one of only a few Jewish families, they managed to fit in well with their neighbors while still maintaining a strong sense of Jewish identity. Ettie was very close to her father. They were alike in many ways, both kind, both gentle. She enjoyed spending time as a kid with him in the store. She and her older sister Elsa even helped out, taking chocolates from the store, setting up a stand outside, and selling them themselves. Ettie was lucky. She had a very close and loving family in Rossburn, close with all of her siblings, and especially with her sister Penny, who was both sister and best friend, a relationship they each cherished throughout their lives. In fact, years later, when Ettie and Earl bought a cottage at Big Whiteshell Lake, Penny and Jerry set up their cottage next door. And in this age, long before the days of cell phones and without a landline, Earl even installed an intercom system between the two cottages, so Ettie and Penny could always be in touch if they needed. Earl. Ettie, of course, graduated high school early, a year early, did grade 12, and at the time went straight to second-year university at the University of Manitoba. She studied psychology. After graduation, she moved to Montreal, studied at McGill for a year, obtaining a Bachelor of Social Work. Her plan was to do her master's and go back to Montreal, but on a stopover in Winnipeg, in between graduation and the next stage, she was introduced to Earl Robinson. The story is a little bit unclear. It seems they may have met earlier, but it didn't really take. This time it did, meeting at a house party. It was 1950. They were married in 1951 at this very synagogue. One of the first couples ever married in this new, at the time, building. They bought their first house on Lanark Bay, later lived on Ash Street and then Shaftesbury, as they raised together their 4 children. Terry, and then Bonnie, and then Evan, and David. Their relationship, which lasted nearly 64 years, was one of true love and adoration. Also one of balance, roles. Earl worked hard in his business, a family business, SIR, that he grew from a simple counter to a mail order catalog, a store, sporting goods, hunting supplies with national reach. In fact, Ettie helped out working in the family business. Her meticulousness, her attention to detail, she would pore over books and books and books of people who would receive catalogs in the mail, looking for duplicates by herself. There were no computers. There was no one to help. She did it on her own to find if people were receiving duplicates and fix the problems. But there was a balance at home. Earl worked, and Ettie was in charge of the home. Organizing, everything was organized. Cooking, an amazing cook. In fact, her kids remember that in a weird, bizarre twist of fate, it was kind of special whenever they had to have a frozen dinner or, like one of these TV dinners, because they were so used to night after night after night, everything was made from scratch. The mushroom fried rice, the oven barbecue chicken, and around the holidays, the soup, the matzo balls, blintzes, apple Betty. Her recipes are the stuff of legend, handed down throughout her family from generation to future generations. She had all the recipes memorized, but she saved the cards. And in fact, if you got yourself a hold of one of Ettie Robinson's recipe cards, you can't read them. They're practically transparent. They've been completely worn through. We mentioned the cottage. It was unheard of for Jews to buy a cottage at Big White Shell Lake, but they did. And this was the place where Ettie and the kids spent their summers. Earl would pop in and out, back and forth during his busy schedule, but Ettie was in charge at the cottage, and everything was programmed. The kids had clubs. One day it was Batman Club, the next day it was an outdoors club. They played games. They were well fed. The kids didn't realize at the time, but now look back fondly on what formative memories they have from their time spent at Big White Shell Lake, with, of course, cousins right next door. And Ettie, being independent and strong, did a lot of the hard work all by herself. Even famous stories of having to call rangers in the middle of the night to come rescue. The time she put in with the family at the cottage was something truly special. She and Earl loved to travel. They went on trips all over the world, especially loving cruises. Stops include the Panama Canal, Asia, Europe, Israel, the Caribbean, all over the world. And then they would winter. They would get out of Winnipeg, first spending time in Hawaii, and then in Palm Springs. Nearly 4 decades of wintering, Hawaii, and then Palm Springs. They loved to bowl together. They were each in their own leagues, and they bowled as couples. Played tennis. She played tennis. Badminton. Ettie Robinson was quite the athlete. How's this for a story you haven't heard very often? She liked to golf, and it was because of her passion for golf that Earl got into golf, so they could spend more time together, both in Winnipeg and in California. Not only did she work hard in the family business, she did spend a couple of years as a social worker, but then went to help Earl. But she maintained her love of helping people with her volunteer efforts, serving on boards for Jewish Child and Family Service, and also for BB Camp, something very, very important in Earl's life and Ettie's life and in their kids' lives, where they spent many, many summers, something she passed on to them. This was a woman who had an incredible social network, the sort of things you don't see very often now. Friends she could count all the way back to her time in Rossburn. 85 years of friendship in some cases. And always managed to stay in touch, no matter where everyone lived, even if there were thousands of kilometers between them. She was also incredible to her extended family. Her nieces and nephews called her Auntie Ettie, but in some ways, she was very much like a second mother to them. She loved book club, women's league, bridge groups, the leagues we mentioned, the Glendale Golf and Country Club, each one bringing her into contact with new social groups, friends she maintained throughout her life. Then at home, the quiet of home, she loved her crosswords. As we mentioned, she loved to knit. She loved to cook and keep her home the way she liked. Mahjong, bridge. But of all the things that Ettie Robinson loved, all the things that were so important in her life, nothing trumped family. As a mother, she nurtured. She led by example. She was a role model. She never preached. She never told you what to do. And yet she had this amazing ability to enlighten without telling you, to show you the way, through the way she acted and the way she lived. She understood her kids, sometimes for them frighteningly so, but was always supportive of them and their decisions. She possessed an unlimited amount of love and guidance. She loved the family dog. The family dog loved her. She was the family mediator, always striking the balance. Earl was the dreamer. Ettie was the practical one who made it happen. There are other stories that stand out from Ettie's life that just add more to her incredible character. In 1967, she and Earl were in a life-threatening car accident. And in the end, Ettie ended up losing a kidney. She never once complained. She never once indulged in self-pity. She was strong, stubborn, tenacious, making it to Bonnie's bat mitzvah later that year, never complaining, and lived the rest of her life with just the one kidney. But you would never know. And then there was another story about a decade ago, a fall, an injury, losing the use of her right hand, her dominant hand, but somehow didn't crawl away, persevered through it, and in some ways trained herself at a late age in life to become left-hand dominant. Truly amazing. Over the last 3 years, David was telling me that he's had the opportunity to spend even more time with his mom, especially lately with her diagnosis. And he wanted me to share on his behalf that it's always unique for a child to develop an adult relationship with his or her parents. In the time that he got to spend to see Ettie to the end, she was able to express to him the gratitude for her life and for her family. She accepted her situation. She knew what was happening. But she felt so at peace with everything she had accomplished. David says that sharing the last month, week with his mother allowed him to view her through adult eyes and appreciate her values, her strength, and her stoicism. Our rabbis teach us that there are 3 crowns. There's the crown of Torah, there's the crown of priesthood, and there's the crown of royalty. But, the rabbis say, the crown of a good name excels them all. This idea, this value of a good name, a good reputation, is something so very important in Jewish tradition. In one of our books, the book of Ecclesiastes, we read, "A good name is to be treasured above precious oil." And in the Talmud it says, "Monuments need not be erected for the righteous. Their deeds are their memorials." Because our name, our reputation, the way we're remembered for the person we are, that is the most powerful legacy we can leave. The most powerful thing because it endures. It's the way people will remember you and speak of you. It is your name. Ettie Robinson's name, Ettie, is just short for Etel. In English, Hebrew, Yiddish, she was Etel. But do you know what Etel means? What it translates to? The name Etel means noble. Noble. As in having or showing fine personal qualities, high moral principles and ideals. It means to be honorable, to be upright, to be righteous. That was Ettie Robinson. That is Ettie Robinson. Noble in every sense of the word. Whether it was as a sister or a daughter, a mother or a baba who took a keen interest in all of her grandkids, everything they were doing, supporting them through it all. Or as a friend, maybe through bridge or mahjong or golf or bowling or a book club or just a neighbor down the hall. In every way, Ettie Robinson, you not only lived up to your name, but your name will be a blessing. Your essence will never leave the hearts and the souls of the people you touched. Please rise for the memorial prayer, the El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, shochein b'meromim. Ametzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei ha-shechinah. B'malot kedoshim u'teorim kezohar arakia mazhirim et nishmat etel bat Elimelech v'Rezel shalach le'olama began einen te menuchata anabal harachamim hastirei beseter kenafecha leolamim utzeror bitzeror achaim enishmata Adonai hu nachalata v'tanuach b'shalom Hamishkava v'nomar Amen. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, we ask that you grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Ettie Robinson, Ethel, daughter of Elimelech and Rezel, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say Amen. Please be seated. Yesterday, I was fortunate to spend tremendous time with Bonnie, with David, with Evan, with Liz, with Cindy. We talked and we shared stories, and I learned so much. I mean, I was already fortunate to know Ettie. And I can picture her sitting where she always used to sit. High holidays. At the end of our conversation, David said to me, "You need to make sure that tomorrow is sunny." And I told him, it's not really how this works. Like, I don't really have that kind of pull. And as I was walking up the stairs to start, I looked outside and thought, oh, it's miserable, it's snowing. And then as I'm speaking, it's amazing. The next phase of our ceremony is to proceed to the cemetery for interment. Shered Zedek Cemetery is at 230 Armstrong Avenue, and we invite you to join us as we travel together in caravan fashion. I mentioned the highest form of respect earlier in our service, accompanying our loved one to her final resting place, and so we ask you to come with us, if you're up to it, to make this journey as we lay Ettie to rest with our own knowing, sorrowful hands. On our journey, we'll put our four-way flashers on, but we will be stopping for red lights as we go. The usual route we take is up Sherbrooke to Logan, over to Salter, over the bridge, and up to Armstrong. Our site within the cemetery is located near Gate 1, which is the closest gate to Main Street, just to give you an idea of your bearings if you follow us or if you're taking another route. After the cemetery, we will return here to Congregation Shered Zedek for a meal of consolation. At that time, our thoughts shift to Ettie's loved ones, her siblings, her children and grandchildren, so that we may comfort them, so that we may join our hearts together with theirs, show them love and support during this difficult time of mourning and grief. This role for us continues, the role of comforting the mourners through the period of Shiva, which will be observed at Ettie's condo. 200 tuxedo, unit 18A, which is on the top floor. 200 tuxedo. The family will be accepting visitors tomorrow night, Saturday, from 7 to 9. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, from 2 to 4 in the afternoon and from 7 to 9 in the evening on all 4 days. There will be evening prayers every night, 7:30, beginning tomorrow. I want to thank you again for coming, for being with us, for being with Eddie's loved ones. I'll invite the family and the pallbearers to leave at this time. As you go, we comfort you with words in our tradition that we say, Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch sha'ara ve'leit Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you be comforted, may God comfort you among all those who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Family, you may make your way, pallbearers. The rest of us, in a moment we'll open the doors at the back. That'll be your cue to go. And we invite you to form 2 lines. This is a custom at Shaarei Tzedek, to form 2 lines on the stairs, the steps of our synagogue, through which the casket can pass. Again, a sign of respect, a sign of community as our loved one passes through our love. Again, thank you for coming. If you're going to stay here at the synagogue and wait for us to return from the cemetery, it's usually about an hour and 20 minutes from when we leave to when we're back. Thank you, everyone.